Hey guys, today is the review for The Hobbit. So it has a little map in the beginning and it's got another map in the back. And I believe that all of these were drawn by J.R.R. Tolkien himself, so that's always fun. This edition is not my favorite, but out of the ones that were available, this is the best one for me. The Hobbit, or There and Back Again, is set in Middle-earth, this fantasy land called Middle-earth. We start out in the Shire, which is where we meet our main character, Bilbo Baggins. It is also where we meet Gandalf and the dwarves. I will get into that later. The Shire is where all of the hobbits live, and it's this very hilly, grassy place and very peaceful. They're not into big adventure drama, basically. Also, while we are in the Shire, we are introduced to what a hobbit actually is, so it's not like you're thrown into the book and are kind of sitting there going, what the hell's a hobbit? We are introduced to what they are and the typical features of a hobbit and what their personalities are usually like. It also gives us a little bit of insight into certain family lines of the hobbits. For example, the Tooks, which I believe Bilbo is half Took. They are a little bit more adventurous and willing to exit the Shire, which most of the other hobbits frown upon and are not into adventure, like I said before, and are very much against leaving the Shire ever for anything. That already sets him apart, that he actually goes on this adventure. As the book progresses, we go through a hell of a lot of locations. We see the Shire. We then go to the last homely house and Rivendell, which is where we meet Elrond and I believe they're called the High Elves. We see the Misty Mountains, Wilderland, Mirkwood, Long Lake Esgaroth, and the Lonely Mountain. The main characters, now again there are endless characters in this story, but the most important ones. So first we're introduced to Bilbo Baggins, and he's very much enjoying himself in his little hobbit hole and is enjoying life and sitting and smoking his little pipe, and he's happy, blah blah blah. And then Gandalf comes along, doesn't recognize him at first, and Gandalf is kind of teasing him, and all of a sudden Bilbo's like, holy crap, it's Gandalf, oh my god, and freaks out. The next day, Gandalf is supposed to come over to Bilbo Baggins' house for tea, and Bilbo forgets all about it, and the doorbell rings, and he thinks, oh my gosh, it's Gandalf. And he goes to the door, and it's not. This is where he meets all of the dwarves. We have Dwalin, Balin, Kili, Fili, Dori, Nori, Ori, Owen, Glóin, Bifur, I've run out of fingers, Bifur, Bofur, Bombur, and Thorin. Thorin is the most important one in this group. He's the leader. He is a descendant of a dwarf king of old. And then we have, I believe it's Balin. Balin is one dwarf who becomes closest to Bilbo than the other dwarves. This is when Gandalf comes in afterwards, and Bilbo meanwhile is going, what the fuck are all the, oh sorry, what the hell are all these dwarves doing in my house? Why are they here? And then Gandalf appears, and it turns out that Bilbo is supposed to go on this big, huge adventure with him to the Lonely Mountain to defeat the dragon Smaug. So Bilbo's kind of going, what? I did not agree to this. But he's labeled their burglar, and he is going to go along with them on this grand adventure and help them defeat Smaug and win back their treasure and their house, palace, whatever, in the mountains. In the end, he does go with them, although he's a little bit resistant. Actually, he's very resistant to the idea because he's a hobbit, and hobbits don't leave home. And he sort of is pushed out of his house by Gandalf the next day without anything, and he's just kind of like totally unprepared. It's just like, holy crap, I don't have anything, I'm gonna starve. And he meets up with the dwarves, and they start on their grand adventure. So the first place that they stop is the homely house, the last homely house in Rivendell, and this is where they meet Elrond, and I believe they're called the High Elves. This is their first sort of stop. One thing that I wanted to mention about the elves really quickly is that in comparison to the movies, they are nothing like the movies. The movies have made elves these sort of quiet and very dreamlike, and oh, we are so peaceful and knowledgeable and wise, and we have so many things, and oh, we're floaty and we're elves, wee. Whereas in the book, they're very active, and they dance and they sing and they drink and they joke and they're partying all the time, and they're a lot more interesting than they are in the movies. In the movies, like I reenacted for you, they're very floaty. So that was a little bit disappointing. After meeting Elrond, they continue on. In the Misty Mountains, they run into goblins, and they end up in the inside of the mountain in pitch black, not having a clue where they're going, and Bilbo ends up getting separated from the group. So Bilbo decides to just follow one path, and he follows it, and it goes down, 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 down into an underground lake. This is my favorite part. This is where we meet Gollum. And it's the part where Bilbo and Gollum meet. Bilbo at this point has found a certain something that will become very important later on. He begins to play a game of riddles with Gollum. The deal is that if he guesses all of Gollum's riddles, then Gollum is going to take him out safely out of the mountain. Otherwise, pretty much he stays there. So they go through a bunch of riddles, and eventually Gollum does lose. Bilbo manages to escape the mountain. He manages to find the dwarves and Gandalf again. Outside of the Misty Mountains, they encounter the eagles, which are those great giant eagles that we see in Return of the King in the Wilderland, and this is where they meet Beorn. Beorn is a really cool guy. He has a lot of animals and talks to them. They're able to communicate somehow, and you'll find that out in the book how they do that. They continue on from there and go into Mirkwood, and this is another one of my favorite parts because this is where we meet the giant spiders. This is also one of my favorite parts because this is where Bilbo sort of shows his worth. Before Mirkwood, the dwarves sort of look at Bilbo as a useless addition to their group. He's just kind of there. This is where Bilbo proves that he's more than just a hobbit, and that he's actually worth something, and the dwarves sort of gain this new respect for him. This is also where we meet the Elf King, so the Wood Elves, and we don't really like them very much. Upon exiting Mirkwood, which we only are able to exit and escape because of Bilbo, we go down the river and we come upon the Man Island of Long Lake. That is where the dwarves and Bilbo resupply and move on. Lonely Mountain is their last destination. The Lonely Mountain is where the dwarves' palace used to be, and all of their treasure is in it, as well as the dragon Smog. This is what they've been traveling towards. This is what they've been working towards the entire book. Bilbo ends up having to go in and sort of scope things out because he's the burglar. He's supposed to be the sneaky one. That's what he's there for. Then this is my other favorite part of the entire book. This is when he has a conversation with Smog. So this is where I'm going to stop because after this is sort of what the revelation and the resolution of the story is. Moving on to the writing style. Tolkien has such a storytelling writing voice. It was such a pleasure to read. I can't believe that I left it this long. His writing style is so playful and relaxed, and it's very, very simple, but he gets all the information across. It's so fun to read. It was just very, very quirky and fun. Other things about The Hobbit, one of the things that I really liked and appreciated was that the journey took about a year. He didn't just go and took 3 weeks for them to get from the Shire to the Lonely Mountain. Seeing the long time pass and that they're not just on this journey for one go, they're on this journey for a long time. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that Bilbo is freaking hilarious. Not intentionally, he's just funny to listen to. Also, Gandalf is far funnier in the book than he is in the movies. He's kind of sarcastic and just a lot more entertaining to listen to than he is in the movies, where he's portrayed as more of a wise wizard. I know everything, I'm super smart and stuff, whereas in the book he's kind of like, haha, I'm a wizard, I'm awesome, trollolol. So that was definitely different. In the book, there are so many little riddles and poems and songs and little things that rhyme all over the place, and they're so much fun to read. They're funny as hell. Yeah, I guess that's it. That is my review for The Hobbit. I freaking loved it. I love Bilbo Baggins' character. He's so endearing and so easy to fall in love with as a character. And Smog was awesome. I freaking loved Smog, and Gollum as well. Although I'm very interested to hear more about the description of how Gollum looks, because the way that he was described in The Hobbit is not exactly the way that he was described, or the way that he's portrayed in Fellowship of the Rings, although they did get the eyes right, so congratulations on getting the eyes right, at least. So I'm very interested to hear a little bit more about him. And I guess an important part of The Hobbit that I didn't mention is Bilbo does find the ring. The ring does have a part in The Hobbit, which if you've seen the movies, then you know from the Fellowship of the Ring that obviously Frodo has to get the ring from someone, and he does get it from Bilbo, and Bilbo got it on this particular adventure that he went on. Overall, it's just an excellent book. So this gets a 6 out of 6 stars for me. I'm really looking forward to August book haul because, of course, if you have not guessed, it is going to be The Fellowship of the Ring, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye!